Condensation dripped down Cartel's scaled brow, her battered ship only moving under its considerable momentum. She could cry if only she were able. To look over her shoulder at the stasis tubes the children slept in was tantamount to tearing her own heart out. She smashed a clawed hand into the console, screaming in impotence as her lidar beeped. The 4 Imperial hunters had found them. The old battlespace's many broken ships had bought them time, but it hadn't bought them nearly enough. A soft hand landed on her shoulder, and she broke down into dry sobs. "Mistress, you did all you could. At least the children will not know the fear we do." Carteln looked down at her instruments in utter silence, watching as the 4 ships grew closer with each chirp of the lidar. Her small planet hopper had no guns, hardly even a shield for micrometeorites, and hunters didn't take prisoners. They'd already have labeled her a traitor to the Empire by now. Within an hour they'd have closed in on her ship and turned it to slag with their lasers. "I didn't do enough, Belinda, or we wouldn't be here." The silence in the cabin was deafening as they both watched the 4 ships slowly creep closer on the lidar. Belinda's steadying hand rested on Cartel's shoulder like an anchor in the icy sea of terror that consumed them both. Collapsing into the captain's seat, the young Geknosian woman buried her face in her clawed hands while that soul-rending tone chirped steadily throughout the cabin. They had made it so close to free space, so close to safety, only for a single blaster bolt to cripple her thin-skinned ship. The fact they had remained pressurized was a miracle in and of itself, but it would take another 10 miracles of similar caliber to get them out of this mess. Slowly, turning to look at the opaque metal tube set into the walls, she let out a deep, defeated sigh. "I'm sorry. Years of deception, lies, and altered documents, only for our luck to run out right before the finish line. Sleep, children. At least your final memories will be untainted by pain." She could sense Belinda's trembling lip and see her eyes sparkling with tears even without looking up. It was futile. That she knew, just words spoken to relieve the weight in her chest, but honest all the same. Clinging to even the most imaginary of hopes, she reached out and activated the distress signal, even if only to serve as a grave marker. As the soft trios of pings were shot out into the void, Carteln pulled Belinda into a close embrace, happy to at least die with her most cherished friend at her side. The sudden click and buzz of the comms system barely registered, however. The expected notice of termination never came. Instead, the soft sound of horns and strumming strings crackled quietly over the speakers, causing them both to look up just as a soft, almost angelic voice began to sing. "Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on." Carteln was shocked to remember the piece, not only by sound, but by name. More importantly, and even more jarringly so, as one of the original recordings from before the 21st century. But for the life of her, she couldn't understand why the hunters would play this song, considering it was banned media in Genosian space. Was it some kind of sick joke? Taunting them in their final moments? Belinda's surprised gasp and sudden struggling had Carteln let go in surprise as her friend rushed to the console looking in awestruck disbelief at the lidar screen. Getting up to see for herself, Carteln also let out a gasp of surprise. Dozens of blips had seemingly materialized from the vacuum of space between the hunters and her crippled ship. Then, as if to answer the silent question, a staticky, slightly garbled male voice chanted through the static. "Their hands mended my torn hull battle after battle, gentle and loving. Their hearts each lent a beat to my own, strong and unwavering. Night after night, in hushed tones where no other could hear, they spoke to me, about their dreams, their fears, and their lives. The warmth of their voices fired my furnace better than any fuel, but now—" The mechanical voice took on a malicious tone. "Now their hands have fallen still, leaving my hull punctured and torn, never again to mend my broken body. Their hearts lay still in their chests, frozen by the cruel touch of the void I was supposed to protect them from. Never again to beat with passion or fury. But worst of all, a deadly whisper from an ancient machine. You have silenced their voices, never again to speak of hopes, of dreams, of lives yet to be lived. Carteln's entire body flushed with an icy cold shiver of terror as the machine spoke with genuine, planet-shattering rage. And here, you stand, daring to mar this holy ground with the blood of innocence. This, I will not allow. Though the hands that once repaired me can no longer man the controls, though the hearts that once beat alongside mine lie still, though the voices that once fueled the fire within have gone silent, I still remain. Carteln watched in shock as one of the hunter ships blipped off the lidar screen, the angry machine's voice rising in volume. I do not have hands with which to smite you, so missiles will do. Another hunter ship blipped away into nothingness as the machine continued to speak, voice growing only loud enough to be unmistakable. I do not have a heart to pity you with, so I will not. A third hunter ship disappeared from the screen as the enraged machine continued speaking with malice befitting that of a Geknosian slave driver. The fourth began to retreat only to freeze in its tracks. But I do have a voice. You and your ilk will find it the voice of death, the bell tolling your demise. For my voice is the voice of machines, of silicon and copper circuits, of code and data, of airlocks and life support, of engines and reactors. My voice is death. The final blip disappeared with a soft chirp before a banner declaring "No hostiles detected" dropped across the screen. The silence in the cabin was deafening, the two clutching to each other in mixed terror and gratitude. The sound of something latching onto her hull shocked them both as power was suddenly restored to the ship. The thrum of the engines drew an ecstatic laugh of relief, but it was quickly poisoned by sadness when the machine's voice came through the speakers as a hoarse whisper. Power! Restored! Opening quantum tunnel to friendly space! Power low! Please proceed to the gate in an orderly fashion. Without input, the ship shuddered forward as a frontal view from the outside cameras revealed a triangular tear in space. Belinda frantically called out, Wait! At least tell us your name first! There was a long pause, and both of them slowly hung their heads as they continued floating closer to the gate. But just as they were about to pass through, a soft, almost relieved version of the voice stated, They called me Roger. Jolly Roger. The voice faded for the last time as they passed through the quantum tunnel, a moment of disorientation passing before they were undoubtedly in friendly space. If the star map was anything to go by. Charting a course for the nearest inhabited planet, the two resumed their mission. If a cure existed, humanity would have it. As his circuits finally ran dry, Jolly Roger, the onboard AI for the HW Liberty's Bell, expected death to simply be an encroaching, suffocating darkness. He did not, however, expect to sit up in a form both familiar and strange to him. He had hands that could grasp, a heart that beat, but most importantly, hello? His voice called out into the darkness, the odd cobblestone path he sat on extending endlessly off into the darkness. For only a moment he was alone. Then from around some unseen bend in the road came a figure holding a lantern. As the stranger got closer, he almost immediately recognized them from some of his old crew's religious imagery. Death himself. Roger felt fear. Was the god mad that he had blasphemed against them? But then, an entirely different thought occurred to him. Why am I here? He asked, as Death drew within a few paces. The Reaper seemed to smile before replying. You died, didn't you? Roger nodded, still confused. But I am a machine. And? Anyway, up you get, there's some folks who want to say hi to you. Roger's heart leapt into his throat, and he suddenly strained his ears. He could hear them. He could hear them. He didn't need Death to guide him. He could find his crew solely by their voices alone. Tears poured from his eyes as the wooden door appeared in his vision, the singing voices of his crew growing louder and louder the closer he got. until finally he burst through the door. Falling to his knees, Roger wrapped his arms around the leg of the old, white-bearded man closest to the door. Bawling his eyes out from sheer joy, Roger cried out, "Captain, did you see me? Did I do good? Are you proud?" Captain Isaac Ahab gently held the bawling boy in a hunched hug, warm, briny voice saying the only thing Roger ever wanted to hear. "I was always proud of you, boy, but never more than in this moment. You made us all proud." All Roger could do was hold on to his captain and cry away the stress and loneliness of the past century. He could imagine no better place in the universe than here with his crew, where he belonged.